All right, ladies and gentlemen, let us make a start. What an amazing day this has been, or at least so far. It goes downhill at this point, but we'll pick up again in about 20 minutes' time. Hi, I'm Mars Berry. I work at the University of Roehampton, training the next generation of outstanding teachers. It is such a fun job. It really is. But before that, I spent 18 years working across 4 different independent schools. So this is very much my world. You're very much my people. Ian's kind of asked me to do a What Mars Does on his holidays presentation. So what I'm going to do is pull together, so one of the things I'm doing is helping the nation's teachers teach computing to the nation's children, which is tremendously exciting work. Lots of other countries are very interested in teaching computing, computer science to their children too. So one of the things that seems to happen in my life these days is they ask me to come over and talk about what we're doing in computing education here and tell them about that there. Whilst I'm there, I get to have a look at what they're doing too. So I've picked 5 countries for us to do a very, very quick Cook's tour around. We're going to start in Finland. We're also going to visit the United States of America. We're going to visit Singapore, New Zealand, and South Korea, not necessarily in that order. I want to start with Finland. Finland was pretty much the second country to put computer science onto its curriculum for every child from primary education up. They've done it in a rather different way from how we went about it in England. So Finland, alongside putting computer science onto the curriculum, sort of stepped back from the notion of there should be subjects on the curriculum and much more an integrated approach to learning. And so coding, yes, it's there. Computer science, yes, it's there. But the idea is that that's integrated across everything else that they're doing as well. So Finnish children are taught to think of coding and programming more as tools to be explored and utilised across multiple subjects. What an inspiring idea. This is what they put on their curriculum. 1st and 2nd grade, programming is taught through play. Isn't that how it should be? 3rd to 6th grade, students get to know a range of visual programming languages and learn to give commands to a computer without being afraid of making mistakes. I don't think that's actually written into the curriculum document, but it certainly should be. Should be no fear of making mistakes here. The slides are from Linda Lucas, who's based in Finland. She's a software developer. She's also a children's author and a children's illustrator. And some of the most beautiful material we're seeing in this space is developed by Linda Lucas. What she's doing is preparing kids for a world where so many problems are computer problems. You may see that in one way or in the other way, but computers are very much the way we go about solving problems these days. So Linda's project, this Ruby's World, Hello Ruby, includes the apps, includes the books, and their books are gorgeous. Buy them for your school library. Even if you're working in a secondary school, still buy them for your school library, and also includes some really gorgeous curriculum resources. First book was about computational thinking. Second book, out in English in October this year, is about what happens inside the computer. The next one is about the internet down the cables, and coming soon, 2018, a book about artificial intelligence. How fabulous is that? So Ruby is our hero in these books. Ruby reminds me an awful lot of my daughter. She takes things very literally. So when her mum or her dad says to her, Ruby, you need to get dressed for school, Ruby does exactly what she's told and get dressed for school. She fails, of course, to take her pajamas off before getting dressed for school. When Ruby is told to tidy up your toys, she tidies up her toys but leaves her crayons and art material on the floor of her room because obviously they're not toys, they're tools, things that she works with. Linda's taken inspiration from this computational thinking idea, but taken it so much further than what we've done around the English curriculum. So yes, there are the concepts, yes, there are the practices, but there's some really nice ideas going into that. Look at the creativity, look at the systems thinking, look at the attention paid to data. We ought to have done that with our curriculum here as well. If we take one thing from this, it's this. If code is the new lingua franca, instead of grammar classes, we need poetry lessons. Too much of what we do around coding education in school is the equivalent of very simple grammar exercises. Can you write a 1 or 2 sentence program which does that? And this really should be a medium for self-expression, a medium for creativity, children's own originality, and then inspiring questions like this. I'll leave you to think about this one for yourself. How does a loop feel? I don't think we're asking that enough in our computer science lessons in England. She also has this idea of the computer as the abstraction machine. And look at the gorgeous illustration there of, yes, we have the box, the machine in front of us, and then we have the apps, the programs. But what happens below those? Well, we've got the layer of the operating system. And what happens below those? Well, we have the layer of the language there, and we have the hardware layer. And what happens below the hardware layer? Well, sooner or later, it's all ones and zeros. It's all just digital. Linda's also produced some really nice materials for Finnish teachers, because, of course, they're facing the same problem as teachers in this country of suddenly be expected to teach a subject which none of them learnt when they were at school. So Kudi 2016, Google Translate does a good job on it for those of you who are not fluent in Finnish. On then round the globe a little to New Zealand with Tim Bell's really inspiring work at University of Canterbury, Christchurch there, around CS Unplugged, about taking the computer out of computer science education, taking inspiration from Dijkstra. Computer science is no more about computers than astronomy is about telescopes. I do wonder how much astronomy we'd have without the telescope, but that's another matter. So there's some lovely resources. You know, you may be working in an institution where your tech is not 100% reliable all of the time. Having a few of these unplugged resources to fall back on for a computing lesson is no bad thing. And of course, the argument is that we can learn these concepts, learn the principles of computer science without actually going very near a computer through these great CS Unplugged materials. So he teaches algorithms for bubble sort, algorithms for quick sort, not through writing the code, but through ordering little pots of baby food or pots of film spool cans into order from lightest to heaviest. What's the quickest way you can do that? Well, finding the heaviest, finding the next heaviest, finding the next heaviest, that works, but splitting them into two groups and then sorting out each of those two groups works so much quicker. And we have a video to show that. He also, and I'm not going to do the live demo because we're starting late, does error correcting codes, error detecting codes as an unplugged activity. That really didn't work as a slide, did it? Okay. So there are concerns expressed. So there is an issue around this unplugged approach, because I suspect your pupils, your students, kind of like using computers in their computer lessons. And when they did the research, when they looked at this, they found that yes, the CS Unplugged approach did teach the concepts, but somehow going entirely unplugged had created not such an exciting, inspiring approach to computing lessons. I don't know, maybe doing a little programming once in a while. But some recent research, this was presented at WIPSCI like a month or two ago, said, okay, let's do this as a control trial experiment. Let's have an unplugged introduction and a plugged introduction to computer science and then make them do the coding activities. And they found out actually that the unplugged students felt much more positive about what they could do with the computer. And again, the unplugged students were actually using a broader range of vocab, a broader range of blocks in Scratch or whatever. Interestingly, Tim Bell is now going back to a plugged approach. So CS Unplugged version 2 introduces some programming exercises. So my error correcting code, error detecting code, he now has a little Scratch programming exercise that follows on from the unplugged introduction. I like that sort of bringing in the balance. Tim Bell doesn't just do that, he also produces this fabulous CS field guide. Those of you who are teaching a little bit further up the educational spectrum, highly recommend that to you as a resource for your students and perhaps your colleagues to draw on. And some of his recent work, it's dated 2011, but I'm sure it was this year, is what are the big ideas of computer science education? What are the fundamental principles that everybody should know? That, yeah, it is all just numbers, it is all digital, that algorithms interact with data to solve computational problems. And these are the things that we need to find some way of teaching. Back round or back in the other direction, I don't know, back to the United States now, and this notion of learning through play. And what better example to use for this than Mitch Resnick's work at MIT with Scratch. And latest book from Mitch, this lifelong kindergarten idea to learning. He talks about giving peas a chance, give peas a chance, I don't know, about what underpins his educational philosophy, inspired as it is by folks like Papert and Froebel, is the notion of children engaging in projects, not just solving problems, not just answering exam questions, of children getting passionate about what they're doing with computers, of children working collaboratively on big problems. Don't do that in the NEA, it's against the rules, folks. Of children just playing with the technology and having a go. And Mitch also talks about there being a purpose to this. It's not just coding for its own sake, it's coding with some sense of moral purpose to it. How do they make Scratch? Well, pretty much the same way as children make projects in Scratch. Absolutely committed to low floor. It should be easy for anybody to learn this programming language, and wide walls. It should appeal to a whole range of different interests, making it as simple as possible. If we have the option to make it more complicated by adding something really sophisticated in, or keeping it simple. Always go for the keeping it simple. Yes, there should be many paths, many styles of coding. It's not just problem solving, it's not just games, it's not just animations. And also this idea of tinkerability, of experiment, of playfulness underpinning this. Scratch 3 probably coming out, maybe January, sometime in 2018. Looks very, very similar, but notice that odd-numbered versions of Scratch have the window or the environment on the right, even-numbered, put it on the left. We've got this really nice sort of work out the angle by dragging things around. Very, very nice editor. That's coming with that, and that will work on the iPad. Those of you who are working in tablet-only schools will find that Scratch eventually will work on the iPad, which is great news. And then this linkage between the Scratch Junior interface of these horizontal programs and the traditional Scratch interface of vertical programs, you should have both in Scratch 3 and be able to swap between the two. Notice that the one on the left there, we don't have to be able to read in order to be able to program. It is an entirely visual language, and that's going to work with young children and also with children with dyslexia or other reasons why they might find it tricky to decode the code. Mitch is also absolutely committed to making Scratch a very inclusive environment, again, providing multiple pathways into that. If you want to make an animation, if you want to make music, if you want to make a game, there should be an obvious pathway through into Scratch from there. There are some incredible extensions for Scratch already, particularly like the text-to-speech one at the bottom right there. Get Scratch to read things aloud so pupils can make their own drill and practice spelling test. Yay! And then in the other direction, again for Scratch 3, probably as an extension, we're expecting the voice-to-text interface. So just as you have with Google at Home, just as you have with Alexa and Siri, the ability to talk to the cat and the cat responds. So, hey Scratch, play a game, or hey Scratch, give me a multiplication test, is coming soon, which I think is fabulous. There are people who have taken the Scratch code base and taken it on far, far further. So we have a thing called GP, which brings in the media computation thing, playing with images, playing with audio files, also brings in object orientation. And my favorite is Snap, which again is an extension to Scratch or an expansion of Scratch, which brings in functional programming, being able to write a recursive quicksort in a block-based language. Okay, I'm not going to do it with Year 3, but I might aim for that in Year 7 or Year 8, just using blocks still, not rushing to text. And again in Snap, we have here a Snap to Python compiler written in Snap. And if you don't think blocks will take you a long way, then being able to write a transpiler in a block-based language is pretty cool. Okay, back in the other direction, over to South Korea now, and a real emphasis on producing some high-quality textbooks. The textbooks they're producing in South Korea are just phenomenal. They have this series of 10 for this software education module. It starts with Volume 1 on artificial intelligence. They've got a book there about driverless vehicles, Internet of Things, virtual reality, CRISPR. Anybody in the room? CRISPR. Thank you. What is it? Yeah, absolutely. Genomic scissors. I thought you were going to tell me what the abbreviation stood for. Okay, just Google quickly. Hey Siri. Space launch vehicles, I don't think that's going to be practical, but on the other hand, why not? Natural disasters, smart medicine, game engines, sports statistics. So much of this is around big data, machine learning, artificial intelligence. Really interesting to see where they're taking their curriculum. So we start in the artificial intelligence book with programming the robotic vacuum cleaner. Possibly from Samsung, other manufacturers are available. What's the algorithm you want your robotic vacuum cleaner to do? How would you code that? And then we go plugged. We go on screen using their equivalent of Scratch, which is this, playentry.org, which is a block-based editor with a Korean language pack, but also with the English language pack on there as well. So you can use this in school. If you've got a high proportion of Korean students, why not have a go at that and create the program for the simulation of the robotic vacuum cleaner? Other things as well, such as building machine learning classifiers. What's the difference between a cat and a dog? I asked 150 independent school senior leaders and teachers the difference between a cat and a dog, and one hand went up. Yes. Right. That's a very nice answer. I'm not sure the machine... Oh, cats v dogs. So, how does a computer recognize whether it's a cat or a dog that's being shown to it? Can a child come up with the rules? Most children, by the age of about, 3, 4, can tell the difference between a cat and a dog. What are the rules that they follow? How would you teach a machine to tell the difference between a cat and a dog? And of course, we can go off and build those machine learning classifiers. Now, if you've never seen it before, do go have a go at teachablemachine.withgoogle.com. I think I've got the URL right, which is something that a 6-year-old, here is an example of a 6-year-old, can use to create their own machine learning classifier. So my daughter Sophie here shows it 3 of her dolls. She shows it Anna and Rapunzel and Cinderella, and picks the gifts to go with each, and then holds the doll up, and the machine can tell which doll it is. She then, of course, places herself in front of the camera, and it says she looks like Anna. I think that's a good result, really. Okay. And we've got machine learning coming to Scratch. There's a guy called Dale Lane, works for IBM in the UK, not South Korea anymore, and he's written the interface between Scratch and that IBM Watson machine learning engine. You can bring that into your prep schools and have children actually using real AI to solve interesting problems like teaching the machine not just to play Pac-Man, but to play Pac-Man and win, to create the sorting hat if that's how you allocate children to houses. If you want to go a little bit more sophisticated, we've got in Mathematica, which is available for free on the Raspberry Pi, the taking the text corpus, you train it with text from, in this example, we have Shakespeare, Oscar Wilde, and Victor Hugo. You give it some sample text and then give it some new text and say, okay, who do you reckon that's written by? And it does all of the clever machine learning magic under the hood and comes back with the answers. Any of you worried about plagiarism with coursework, you could do exactly the same thing there. And of course, particularly sensitive from a Korean point of view was Google's AlphaGo beating the world Go champion, winning this wonderful, complex game, 2,500-year history, coming up with strategies of playing Go that the professional Go community had never discovered for themselves. And so the Koreans in their textbook have got, here we have a unit about how AlphaGo managed to do that. And can you actually teach that approach to machine learning to pupils? And they're certainly doing that now. And what about Singapore? Well, we have in Singapore this whole emphasis on competition, on striving for excellence there. I've had sort of 3 weeks over in Singapore working with some Singaporean teachers. We did the Scratch drill and practice maths game. This was the version that they came up with. What's 7 times 8? Answer is 56. If right, say well done. Otherwise, say, why you so stupid? Try again. You know where you are with this. Okay. And then the feedback from the teachers I was working with there, realized that my students' learned helplessness could have stemmed from my not allowing room for mistakes. Isn't that interesting? As a teacher, I need to change my mindset about mistakes and celebrate them. I think that's just so positive to see. But we have a lot of emphasis. They've not put computing onto their national curriculum. They're winning at PISA. They kind of feel they don't need to change their curriculum at the moment. But they're doing so much coding in co-curricular and extracurricular activities, with particularly an emphasis on competitions there. So working with a school there where they had their RoboCup challenge. These are very, very young children. They've never seen the problem before. They've not got the robot built. They see the problem, they build the robot, they program the robot to solve whatever the particular problem was. And again, working collaboratively, working in teams to solve difficult problems with these Mindstorms robots. They have big national competitions such as iCode. They're getting marks there for uniqueness, for proof of concept, and yes, for the quality of their code, and having a great time whilst they're doing it, producing the sort of thing which we have in Apps for Good, the Silver Helper, the Future Pioneer Generation package, to prepare for the silver tsunami which will hit Singapore in future generations. Really interesting, coding with a social purpose to it. Singapore National Coding Competition is an amazing site, it really is. So they create this online arena, and they've got these bots on there, virtual bots. They program the bot to hunt around the arena, perhaps capturing things from the other bot, perhaps just going and collecting resources, and then they battle these bots against one another on screen, and the winner is pretty much the winner for this. What an amazing, motivating approach to coding. And then, of course, national software competition. Again, the mark schemes, look where they're giving points there, appropriate use of the sensors, value, usefulness, appeal of the application, but also innovativeness, creativity, and yes, does it work? and again, pitching that, presenting that to the team of judges. Really great to see. Thank you very, very much. We're back on schedule. Any questions before I stop, though? Okay, no questions? All right, thank you.